Hey guys, this is Sean. I'm going to be talking to you guys about some modularization. We talked a little about it in class, and I do have a video that's similar to it called the Neo Tokyo. Me taking a concept drawing from Deus Ex, and you can see my pieces and parts and how I built things. So what I'm going to do here is going to show you the same concept when it comes to building your modulated environment for UDK. I'm going to actually make a universal square here real quick here. And this isn't a perfect scale representation, but it's pretty darn close, and it's only off by maybe a foot in Unreal units, and it translating to regular feet. What we're going to do is type in here 32, and then we're going to go 96 for height, and then we can go 32. Now, by default in Maya, it's going to be centimeters. But the way I have it right now, if I punch these numbers in, it's now in UDK feet. So this is about 5.5 feet, almost 6 feet tall. Now, if you want to make your grid accordingly, we can change that. So we can go in here into our grid options. Now, when you work with the grid, let's open them up real quick. You can change how your scale is going to be, but you can also, believe it or not, even though we're messing with this, we can also get a little bit of a jump start by going into our preferences, go to our settings, and set this from centimeters to feet. Now, it's still not going to be exactly the same, but it's pretty close in essence that we do have a dude here that's about, if we go to the side view, he's not real tall. He's about like 3 feet tall right now. But we can change that. Now, I gave you guys a script in which you can actually set your grids accordingly if you want to. And we can also go from feet. You don't necessarily have to go to feet, but we can go to a close equivalent for those that can't get your hands on that. Go to preferences here, settings. We can set this to inches if you want. And you'll notice it's twice the size. So a lot of times I'll just set it to feet. You can even go to meters if you want to, but you'll notice your grid's dramatically different. But overall, when you are using, let's go to our feet here. When you are using this system, if you set it to your cube to 3296 in centimeters, you'll notice that things will turn out okay. So let's go back into my preferences real quick. Actually go to my grid settings. And then also my preferences. I'll keep the guy open for now. And I'll just, by default, just put it back here. This is probably one of the fastest ways that you can get things up and running. Now, we can keep the grid snap on, believe it or not. So we don't have to necessarily keep our grid that tiny. But you can also increase the display here. Notice I've broken up the divisions a little bit more. Make it a little easier to see things. My graphics card doesn't seem to like it here on the side view, but it's doing fine over here. So go figure. Just a little bit bigger than the actual layout. But you can go back in there again, and I'll lower my divisions a little bit. Apply. You'll see it's shrunk down. So I'm just showing you a little briefly here some of the cool stuff that you can do for your grid. And you can change your grid lines and width. So not only can you change your measurement, you can also change it here. The script that I gave you guys allows you to actually set the grid exactly like UDK if that's your preference. But believe it or not, when you turn on Snap to Grid over here, this allows you to still work with the UDK. I mean, still build your models and keep the grid. Everything will still snap, even though it may not be visual up here, which sometimes can be helpful to have it up here, but it'll still work, believe it or not. Let me hit the F key here real quick. There you go. Just off my cube. All right, so from here we can start building our environment. I'm going to build a square. And he's actually snapping to grid, believe it or not. And we can build to scale. And temporarily we're going to turn the grid snap off. Doesn't look like he wants to. There we go, buddy. So if we want to, we can also grab our vertices after the fact. Look like my mouse might be dying a little bit there. And we can snap it into place. That's still working great. But as you create your modulated surface, what you want to do, let's go ahead and move this guy out of the way because we don't need him there. You want to remove any polys, and you saw me talk about this when it came to Neo Tokyo. Let's go ahead and put this guy there. Grab this. You want to delete things that are not going to be seen by the player. That is useless and doesn't need to be seen. Go over here, and we can start modulating and creating our surfaces here. But what I like to do when I set out building my environments, I actually like to go in here and I like to set my pivot at the appropriate axis point that I know, oops, my bad, that I know I'm going to be using a lot. So I'm going to snap it over to the corner, hit insert to lock it back in Maya in particular. And I like to move this guy up, and again, he's snapping to grid right now, which is kind of nice. But I can go in here and do, say I don't want the top even shown. Maybe I just want a husk of a building. I can delete that. I can go in here, grab this guy, and hit Control D, keep my finger on the V key, and snap it into place, which is pretty nice. And when I model, I like to keep my polygon on edges on my polygons here, so that I can see where my topology, what it's starting to look like. Now this is pretty simple. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't get this, that you can actually keep things pretty straightforward. You saw in my hard surface video that you don't want to make unnecessary edges if they don't help the silhouette, especially when it comes to modulating environments. Let me go and make an edge here, cut, and I'm going to make another edge here at the top. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll make a marker of where I want to put my windows or my doors, an area, a sense of scale environment. And the reason why is that when I texture, I can maybe make some, erosion. I have two different areas I can play with. I have more options to vertex paint when I divide it up just a little bit. And we'll say for it's a little dark in here. Let me turn my light on real quick. Let's say visually, we want to be able to paint vertices, but we also don't want to show everything, or maybe the building's favoring one particular angle. And you saw this in my hard surface video. What you can do is, if it isn't helping the silhouette, now these are helping me, maybe I want to vertex paint, maybe I want to cut this up a little bit more, but back here is not doing nothing for anybody. So if I want to, I can merge to center on these guys, not using some of my shelf tools, but that's fine. And I can do the same thing back over here. Grab these bad boys, go to vertices, grab these bad boys, and hit the G key. Now you can also use the multi-tool, which is pretty nice. I mentioned this in one of my earlier videos. If you keep your finger on right click and keep your finger down, you can use a thing called the multi-tool, which allows you to select faces, edges, and vertices all at the same time, which is kind of nice. So with that set up, now if I wanted to, I can have a little bit more options, not a whole lot, for vertex painting. Make sure you delete your history as you go. When we used to work at Airplay, we used to actually turn our history off while we're working. At least I did. It was me and another artist were the only ones that used Maya. But I would keep it off so that when I exported, I didn't accidentally leave it on. I rarely went back into my stack. I was actually pretty fast with environment stuff, a little bit slow with the vehicles. Eventually, I got fast. Practice makes perfect. So go in here. Let me do the insert edge loop, and another one. Insert edge loop, and one down the middle. Insert edge loop. So now if I want, I can vertex paint. Now there's two different ways to approach modularization. This all depends on resources. This all depends on how big the environment is. If I wanted to, my environment, maybe it's not that big, but I do want to modulate some things. I could go in here and straight scale. And again, this is going to be for a small environment. I can actually go in here and make my windows inside the object itself. Now this can be tricky because you don't quite get as much variety or options. And let me go and grab this guy all the way around. And I can extrude this out a little bit. Oops, my bad, went the other way, Control Z. Let me turn the grid snap off for a second so I can extrude this a little bit easier. And then I could actually have that as one of the windows. But I have to, make sure I pace it accordingly. I just kind of put it in the middle. Probably should have put it here, and then maybe one more here, or even slid my edges around. Let me go back a little bit. So that's one way you could do it. One way that I like, which is a little bit better and allows you to mix and match. And if you're using vertex paint, it works really nicely because then you can figure out exactly where you want to put everything. I can go in here and make a window. It's down here. You guys saw me do this a little bit on the Neo Tokyo. Give it some depth and thickness to it. switch the faces. If I want, I can make it just one whole. Let me hit the F key. One whole piece right there. And I can extrude. Haven't set up my hotkeys for extrude on this version of Maya. And we go and scale that down. And if I want, I can extrude one more time and push that in just a little bit. And from here, so I don't have double faces, I can delete maybe one of them. And keep that there, and maybe even delete some of these guys. I don't need that. This is not needed. Nor are you. You're a bastard. You die. You die first. You die second. Alright, get them all. And then now that we have this, I can use this guy for the benefit of mankind. I can switch his insert. Yes, I do lecture like this. And we're going to hit the insert key, keep my finger on the V key, and snap this in the corner, and insert that. And then now I'll just rotate. I'm being super lazy tonight and using my hotkeys as much. And I can hit the J key there to keep that locked in. Oh, got to keep my finger on the J key. Optical illusion. There we go. Do it one more time. Keep finger on the J key. Rotate that. Boom, 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 boom. There you go. And the reason why I did this is so now when I move this guy into place, notice I put it on the bottom edge, I can snap him to a corner. And if I want to, I can now scale him down. I'm doing this outside of any kind of concept art. But this allows me to place my windows accordingly to where I need them. So I can do Control D, keep my finger, hit the W key, keep my finger on the V key, and snap it into place. And there we can modulate and use these windows over and over again. So I've stacked them up. I've divided this accordingly. You don't want to make it too dense. You really don't. This is a case by case. If this is closest to the player, this is really close to the player. Even this guy we can divide up a little bit more. The closer they are to the player, the more you can divide it up for vertex painting. So you have to think ahead of time. But anything in the distance, let's divide this guy up a little bit. I'll do it generically real quick. And we can, just imagine we cut them up. Actually, we're going to freaking cheat. Not really cheating. Control T can put us back into our selection mode. Also sometimes puts us into universal control mode. I hate that mode. Go and grab it, delete this. So these guys, let me do Control Z for a second. Let me get him back here. I'm going to move him out of the way. So Control D, duplicate down, keep my finger on the V key, and snap a douches there. Oh, Control Z. I'm going to have to change his pivot before I get too excited about that. Insert, keep my finger on the V key for the base. There he goes. And insert again, keep my finger on the V key, snap him into place. So these guys who are up front to the player, they can be dense, but this guy way in the back that nobody cares about, he could even be less than this. He can go in here. And remember, when you select edges and delete them, you can't just hit delete. A lot of my students used to do that. I'm like, what are you doing? You have to delete edge vertex. Hit the G key to repeat the last process. So this guy way in the back can be super butt naked. Not interesting. Far, far away. It could even be used as an LOD if your player does go in those locales. And we'll talk about the LOD in the next video. But you can see we have this pretty straightforward, all quadded out, some triangles. This is actually a regular quad, believe it or not. We can remove that. It's going to get triangulated anyway when it goes into an engine. But notice I made some quick windows. I have some an area we can still vertex paint a little bit if we need to. And we can even make a door. And I'll show you how to make a door and do it pretty efficiently in the next video. If not, we'll definitely head over to LODs. I do have a video already talking about doors when it comes to the Neo Tokyo. So feel free to watch that. And that's about it. I'm going to delete all by history, and we'll move on to the next video. Thank y'all.